Thanks, Kevin. Really appreciate that. Hey, guys, welcome. A little bit after noon here, just a couple secs. It's another Facebook Live. I'm pleased to say this is part of our Your New Mexico Government series that we do at New Mexico PBS and continuing. We're going to classify this Facebook Live as part of that series. I'm really pretty tickled about that. We're going to be talking to a couple of fellers here about the House Bill 8 from Representative Diane, Hochman Vigil. And she is looking to have the ability to have liquor delivered to your home. Now, I'm sure you might be up on this in the general sense if you've been following the news, but maybe not the details. That's what we're going to discuss today. This bill, as you might know, was vetoed by the governor last year. She mentioned that it ran up against the Liquor Control Act. Somehow it doesn't this year. We'll talk about that as well. But I've got Justin Green with us. He is from the Restaurant Marketing and Delivery Association. He's a board member. He's also in Santa Fe. He's local. It's a national group, but he's right here in New Mexico. An old friend, Matt Kennicott. A lot of folks might recognize Matt, if not for the beard. He's done a lot of work around New Mexico for a long time. And he is working with Matt. Again, I got so many associations going here. Give me the name of your new group again. If you
No worries. I'm working with the Bar, Nightclub, and Entertainment Venue Association.
There's a mashup between those two groups. I love it right there. Absolutely. Well, welcome to you both. I really appreciate your time here as we try to parse some of this out. Matt, let me start with you. And Justin, I'll give you the same question here to take a bite at too. I want to back up just a little bit. I'm not expecting you to have the full Monty on how the Liquor Control Act works. I'm not looking for that, Matt. Mm-hmm. But basically, what is the situation as it stands now when it comes to the idea of delivery? What's the overall sense of why we're even looking at this at this point?
That's a great question, Gene. So in New Mexico, the bar and nightclub industry in particular, it has been severely impacted by these COVID-19 shutdowns. Mm-hmm. Our industry was really the first one to shut down, and it'll probably be the last one to open back up. Right. Even under green status, we're still not allowed to open. Mm-hmm. We're talking about an industry that generates roughly $1.2 billion in economic activity in New Mexico each year. Mm-hmm. So we're looking at liquor delivery and hopefully a kind of a per drink delivery scheme in New Mexico to help some of our owners generate some revenue. Mm-hmm. Right now, they don't have any opportunity to generate revenue because their doors are closed. Right. We do have some places like Sister Bar that serve excellent food, very excellent food, but most bars around New Mexico just don't have that, and they don't have that ability. So it's an income and revenue generator for our members.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Hold on, Justin, for one more quick sec. We need to talk, of course, about the cost of licenses and how it works now compared to what we're going to get into in a little bit. So, Matt, if I can get you to do that too. What's the situation now? Because there's a lot of, I wouldn't say information, a lot of folklore sort of floating out there about liquor licenses and how this works.
Yeah, there's a lot of folklore. Mm-hmm. To be quite frank, the way this bill is set up, we don't support the licensing scheme or the bill, quite frankly, at this point, mm-hmm. because it'll really devastate the industry in New Mexico. Most people who own licenses now will likely end up adding the dispenser portion of the license back in, mm-hmm. if the legislation passes, and that'll end up saturating the market and sharply reducing the price and value of the current licenses. Right. And the way the system is set up now, and I'd have to look this up, but I believe there are court cases establishing this, but liquor licenses in New Mexico are basically property.
Yes.
So anytime property is taken, that owner then needs to be compensated by the person or the entity taking that property. There's no scheme in this bill, in this legislation for compensating owners, and mm-hmm. there's nothing there to really backstop what the investments have been of these current owners. So that's a giant issue at this point, mm-hmm. and something that we as an association can't stand behind, because it'll end up impacting a lot of our owners. I actually know of owners who have used their licenses as collateral on loans. So, I mean, there's a huge economic impact right there alone.
Well said. It's interesting for the folks at home. I'm sure you know if you've lived here for some time that liquor licenses as it stands now is a very expensive enterprise, anywhere from deep six figures to what's going to be approaching $1 million per license. And what's happened is because of that scheme, I think unbeknownst to a lot of folks out there, the license holders in our state, because of the costs, are people like CVS, Walgreens, Costco, Alsops, Total Wine. I mean, there's about 100, Alsops and Total Wine own about 120 of these 1,400 plus licenses that are out there. And I wanted to get that in there before we get going with you, Justin, because again, the context is important. This idea of having a liquor license for $3,000 as it's in the bill versus 300,000 potentially. Let's talk about it from your end of the world. Are you in your group excited for the bill? If so, why?
So we like the bill in its form. We've advocated for a bill. We helped champion the bill 2 years ago that was vetoed, and another bill 6 years ago that was vetoed by Governor Martinez. So this is our third time around. Third time might be a charm. And this is a priority for the governor's office this time. So that sort of gives you a path, hopefully, to getting a good bill and a signature on the fourth floor. This bill is partially an economic development and a support bill for the restaurant industry, that we can provide this added increment of sales to restaurants that are, focused on takeout and delivery at this point. And if they were able to add a bottle of wine or two, or a 6-pack or two, or a growler or two, would allow people to safely stay home. The governor has a mandate to stay home as much as possible. Restaurant dining rooms are closed, and a bottle of wine is a nice complimentary thing. And restaurants that have this ability already on premise can extend this off premise. The bill also has the ability for a third party to do this because I own a restaurant delivery service in Santa Fe. We're a good example of how we help market for our restaurants and do it with best practices, with employee drivers. And there's a bunch of restrictions in the bill to make sure that the safety for intoxicated persons and for minors are covered in how liquor is, or alcohol, sorry, beer and wine is distributed for delivery. The bill does not allow liquor. So that was so liquor is hard liquor by definition. So this is beer and wine in very, very limited quantities, and it would require food to go along with it. So it's really carved out for food establishments to extend their reach to the home.
Let me just add a little of that. As I'm reading it here, the legislation will allow restaurants, grocery stores, liquor stores, craft distillers, small brewers, and bars to offer that home delivery, as you mentioned, and that food vig, as Matt mentioned, would be $25. It's interesting when I think about this on a practical basis. Let's go back, Justin, a quick sec to the idea of a third-party group. Let me read to the folks some language from the bill itself regarding that. A third-party alcohol delivery licensee shall be independently liable for the delivery of alcohol beverages to an intoxicated person or to a minor for any violation of the Liquor Control Act, and be subject to suspension, revocation, or administrative fine pursuant to a certain section. It seems like a lot of the liability is on the delivery folks here, as opposed to the folks on the restaurant or the folks making the deal. Do I have that right? Am I reading that into that correctly?
Yes, our industry has to gear up for that, and to make sure that we have trained and qualified people and obtain the correct insurance and policies and training to make sure it doesn't happen, and do that. So yes, that is very specifically spelled out in the bill, that the liability cannot be shielded. There's no shielding of the sales. And there's a little complication in that, in the sense that the sale is actually being made by the restaurant. So, if we show up at a doorstep and somebody's can't provide an ID or looks intoxicated, and we shouldn't, transfer the alcohol, we need to restock it and bring it back and have some mechanism to safely do that. And there's some complications in the bill that have that, but I'm sure that in rulemaking, hopefully AGD will figure that out and deal with that properly.
Yeah, I can see the details that need to be kind of dealt with there. Matt, interesting, another part of the bill that has to do with delivery. A person, company, or licensee that wishes to deliver retail sales of alcohol in New Mexico on behalf of valid retailers, dispensers, craft distillers, wine growers, small brewers, or restaurant licensees that also hold a valid alcohol beverage delivery permit shall obtain a third-party alcohol delivery license from the department. So basically, these folks are going to be vetted, licensed. I mean, this is a not just a show up and you got a job. You have to really show something here, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. That, one of the things that I think we take incredibly seriously in New Mexico is the training of our alcohol servers.
Right.
As we all know, we've got a large DWI problem in New Mexico and a large domestic violence problem in New Mexico. And having the servers and in this case, the delivery drivers trained and licensed on what to look for, how to spot somebody who's been overserved, et cetera, that'll go a long ways towards helping prevent some of these problems. We're very much in support of those types of provisions that allow for more training and more recognition of what to look for with somebody that's been overserved.
Now, obviously, they have to be 21. They have to have a valid license, all that that usual stuff. But is there something beyond that, Justin? You've discovered in your business what makes a good delivery person for alcohol? Is it different from Uber Eats and Grubhub? Is there a different mindset? What do you look for a good employee to do this?
So we train, we're a slightly different model. We operate a model here in Santa Fe where we are locally owned, and we are not using massive amounts of venture capital to sort of support losses in this venture and independent contractors. We use employees, we train them, we COVID test, we do best practices. We've made sure that we are up to date in what we need to be for the times, right? And so alcohol has certain restrictions and qualifications that we're going to bring our staff through should this bill pass to safely to do this. So Uber can do this. It might not be in their model, and all those other guys are out there doing this, and some specialize in alcohol delivery. But I think it's really aimed at mostly locally owned businesses, whether it's a locally owned liquor store or a locally owned restaurant or a locally owned third-party delivery company. There'll be a lot of opportunities to either provide it for your individual business or as a third-party business to bring a staff in that professionally services this and makes it safe.
Right. And I have to back up what Matt said a second ago. We're in a new era here in New Mexico. If we had tried to do this, a decade ago, I doubt you'd find, well, it wouldn't pass, but I doubt you'd find, the ability to sort of set up a home delivery scheme here. But now that we have a world of delivery, I mean, everything's delivery now, it just seems much more palatable for everybody concerned. But there are downsides to everything. Are there things, Justin, out there that you're trying to anticipate that might be a problem for this idea of delivering at home?
So we don't know what the rules are going to be that come out of AGD in the final implementation. We have some best practices with our company that we have software where we can scan IDs and it reads the barcode, it reads the front picture, it matches the front picture to the picture of the person who's standing in front of you, and it gives you a percentage of, hey, that looks like the person in the ID, and it gives some ID verification. Things like that can be implemented in this bill at rulemaking. And actually, the last bill that we ran 2 years ago, we very specifically said, use these new technologies to allow for safer ID checking, verification of data afterwards. AGD, this bill requires that all of this information be retained for up to 3 years, which is a little excessive, but it's fine. In the electronic world, it's just an electronic file. But just to check that, you're delivering it to a location. So now with a smartphone, you can see this was done. They pushed the button here at this location where the address was supposed to be. It has a picture of the alcohol in the hands of somebody or safely put on a table and a picture of the person at the door. All the things that need to be sort of compiled to make AGD and SIU confident that we're doing, that we're compliant. I would say that some of the delivery companies that are out there right now are not compliant at all. I actually, about an hour ago, I had a bottle of wine dropped off at my house as a promotional thing, dropped on my doorstep. And it is, that is through one of the major common carriers, through interstate from another state to New Mexico, just dropped on your doorstep. So we think that we will be much more rigorous in our standards, and AGD will be able to enforce this much more with what they come forward with.
That's so fascinating. This is going to sound strange, but as an ex-paper boy, strange way to start this. I say this, I used to say this to my kids: all real life happens at the threshold of the front door. It's amazing what happens at the front door. That's the truth. And that moment you just described, Justin, of that verification through tech, because obviously if you're a viewer's watching this saying, well, someone's uncle, as used to happen 40 years ago, could call in the order, the delivery guy shows up and just hands it to the underage kid and nobody's none the wiser. If I'm following what you're saying, that's just not going to be able to happen if I'm following you correctly.
I hope that the rules are made in such a way that they allow for some technology to help enforce this and make it easier on our people, right? We're taking on the liability at a certain, for one single bottle of wine or 2 6-packs. That's a huge amount of liability. We need some sort of technology and safe harbor of a minimum standard that we're able to comply with and make sure that we feel good and everybody feels good about the transaction.
Love it. Matt, on the restaurant side of things and the entertainment and venue side of things, I appreciate you bringing up Sister. That's my joint, right down the street here. I love that place. But you make an excellent point. Not every restaurant's set up the way they are. And so do you anticipate, I can think in my own mind, if I'm in the business of doing this and I have this opportunity to do this for $3,000 a year, I'm going to find a way, basically. It's the opportunity is just tremendous. And so this idea of economic development you mentioned earlier as well, expand on that. I've had a lot of interesting conversations about the quote unquote neighborhood bar.
Yeah.
We need to have that happen here in New Mexico to cut down on drunk driving and stuff.
Yeah, when you look at the stats, the going back to the domestic violence mentioned earlier, when you are serving alcohol on premise, the domestic violence stats are a lot lower for folks who will go out, enjoy a couple of drinks, and then go home. Right. Where the real DV happens is when people are going out and getting packaged, and nobody's really controlling how much they're served at a home. Mm-hmm. That's where the real problems happen. Now, that aside, the liquor delivery we think is still a great option because you do have those trained individuals who will be serving the alcohol to those folks who order it. Mm-hmm. As far as the neighborhood bars go, it's not just a place to go and drink or not just a place to go and get rowdy. A lot of folks look at their neighborhood bar as a place to socialize, to get their social activity, to come together as a community. And that's something that I think a lot of folks don't necessarily realize during these shutdowns is that's yet another social avenue that's been taken away from people. The economic development of areas is huge where we have neighborhood bars. Just downtown alone on Central, I lived downtown all last year, and I saw the difference from prior to shutdown to the end of December, and it was gigantic. Yeah. There's no nightlife activity down there at all. The homeless situation is starting to get out of hand and out of control. Crime is on the rise downtown. Plus, we're losing out on all of that money that patrons would normally spend. If we can work to find a way to safely open, such as the brewers and the distillers have done in New Mexico, which, by the way, there's not a lot of difference in going to like Marble and sitting on the patio and enjoying a beer as it would be if I went to like FX and sat on a patio there if they were to open one. We'd really like the opportunity to be able to open back up like that in order to generate some revenue and really bring some more public safety downtown again.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well said. I completely forgot, guys, my fault. At the beginning of this, we talked about how the delivery thing works, but I also forgot, Matt, that there are certain places in the bill, I can't quite find it here, but that is not going to be deliverable, so to speak. And one of them is college campuses, um, near schools.
Mhm.
Can anyone tick off the do not deliver places that are in the bill? Justin, do you have that?
Yeah, it's pretty much limited to residential. So
Okay.
it kind of carves out hotels as well, even that they're not allowed to. So it's no schools, no commercial property.
Right.
It's really limited to residential, and it is limited to one bottle and one six pack. So it is very limited in its reach in this. And those are some of the details that the previous bill allowed to hotels, and the previous bill allowed 2 6-packs or 2 bottles of wine. And specifically spoke to cider, which this bill doesn't have. So there's still little tweaks, a few minor tweaks in that, but yes.
Where do growlers fit in there? If by volume, does that fit inside that 6-pack criteria?
So that is a definition thing. So in most communities, and I think New Mexico considers this too, that once a growler is professionally sealed in a restaurant or at a tap room, that is sealed, so it's not a broken package, and that a growler fits in the 72 ounce. I think a growler's in the 60 something ounce range, so it fits in there.
Gotcha. I'm fascinated by that. I'm a growler guy. I'm surrounded by places that the convenience of it is unbelievable. And again, thinking about it. Oh, let me go back to something here real quick. Thank you, Justin, for mentioning commercial buildings. One of the things that's you can't deliver, because one of the things I thought about before I realized that you couldn't do it, I thought you could. I had this vision of all these people working, at night in the office, ordering a pizza and then ordering a 6-pack, to be delivered. Maybe that's something for down the road, but I could see the need to not do that. That would get very, very messy, going through buildings and commercial buildings, trying to find, the right guy or woman who ordered the booze, and everybody else, oh, that's me. Yeah, bring it right in here. It's crazy. So I just wanted to kind of make that clear. Going back to delivery, Justin, are you concerned about competition? Because what I'm sensing from what you said a little bit ago is, from a reading in the bill, sort of the implication here is that this is an interesting business opportunity for fellows and men and women like yourself. Maybe someone in Las Cruces wants to start a deal. Maybe someone in Grants wants to start a delivery deal. Suddenly this economic development thing starts spilling a little bit wider than just physical locations to have booze. You know what I mean? Are you sensing that as well? Is there an opportunity here for folks?
Yes, I'm in communication with the folks that operate in other parts of the state on the Eastern Rim and Hobbs and areas like that, and in Las Cruces, and they are in general in favor of this. Wanting potentially a 2-bottle or 2 6-pack limit instead of 1. A few little details tweaked here and there, but we're encouraged that it's going in the right place, and this is a priority of the governor's. So we stand there to help make it as easy to get approved and implemented. We'll work with AGD to help them with software implementation and show what our industry standards are, because sometimes they come into this and they go, how do you verify this thing? So here are the 3 software. We're ready to help this.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good. Matt, pick up on that if you would, because it seems to me there's an interesting opportunity, even in, I'm not sure if there's a difference between the rural parts of our state and the urban parts. If I was going to open a liquor delivery service, I would actually do it in a rural part of our state. That actually makes more sense to me from a business person sort of point of view. So again, the idea is opportunity in economic development and your sense of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a ton of economic development opportunity here, whether that's for the delivery businesses themselves, or for locations that want to offer drinks. And I would say we'd even be in support of expanding this a little bit further for a buy the drink option. So like if I own a bar that does like a famous cocktail or something, there are ways to be able to seal that cocktail up and make it deliverable. It's done in other states. Texas, for example, is one of those. So really the opportunities are big with this legislation, if we can get it to a point where it's open to anybody who would like to participate, bars included. It's something that's become a very large industry in other states, alcohol delivery, and I think it's something that could be very big here in New Mexico as well.
Yeah, flush that out a little bit. And, you know, that's a good point there, since we're sort of stuck here. We're not witnessing other delivery stuff going on there. How robust is it? That's fascinating to me.
You know, I personally don't have any numbers off the top
Okay.
of my head, but you know, all of our neighbors are doing this now, and a lot of I think 36 states in total now are doing alcohol and liquor delivery, and they've all seen an uptick in revenue from the delivery side of things and from the bars and restaurants that are allowed to do it. But maybe this is something that Justin can expand on.
Yeah. Any sense of harm reduction in those 36 states, by the way?
So I don't know anything empirical, but I do know that over the years, a lot of the DWI, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, have all come out with, they're worried about certain things. Make sure that you're not serving to underage people when it arrives at the house, right? Make sure it's a safe environment where you're the person receiving it. But in general, the fact that this is aimed to reduce drunk driving, that's one of the main aims of this thing, is like, if you can get a fantastic meal from one of Santa Fe's fine restaurants, or Las Cruces, or Albuquerque, or Amarillo, or Alamogordo, sorry. But any of these locations, and get it delivered with a bottle of wine, stay home, stay safe, especially in COVID times, but even on a Saturday night, when there's a 2-hour wait at your favorite restaurant, but boy, those enchiladas would be great with a 6-pack, and we're just going to sit home and rent a movie, and we'll be good. And we didn't drive. We didn't drive to a restaurant and have that margarita or 2 or 3. We're limited to beer and wine in our residence at a very minimal quantity. So we think it's a harm reduction.
I appreciate that, because that's a big concern here. As you know, historically, you know, it's just been rough here for anything that has to do with alcohol and driving and anything else. But again, you're saying this is the antithesis of that. This is the complete opposite of that. You don't have to put your key in the ignition. You know, there's a saying here in Albuquerque, wherever you live, about walkability, you're, you know, miles from anything, but by car, you're 15 minutes to everything. You know, it's a very, it's a bizarre thing of the West in Albuquerque. But I think, and I only say that jokingly to say, I think this is the opportunity. That our spread outness is the opportunity. A lot of people don't realize the square miles of Albuquerque alone are huge. This is an enormous city, you know, square miles wide. And you start to think about the food and liquor deserts that are that just absolutely overlay our city all over the place, let alone statewide. This could be quite fascinating. I'm going to wrap up here. Anything you want the folks to know about? I'm going to try to catch up with the representative. I know it's waiting to get in another committee hearing. I haven't seen a date for that to happen, so I'm hoping to get some folks to come on. We've got 2 in the House and 2 in the Senate sponsoring this, 2 Republicans and 2 Democrats. So it has a very interesting feel. And the governor's for it, so it just feels like it's on its way. But what should folks really take away from this if they want to support something like this? Justin, I'll start with you.
Yeah, so we want it to be built to help local businesses. You know, the big giant chains that we're sort of fighting with in the day-to-day business of this community. You know, the local bars, the local restaurants, the things that make New Mexico the most special place are things that need to be supported in this time. And this is not a be-all end-all. This is not a mass amount of alcohol out there, but it'll support small restaurants to do small deliveries of alcohol and with their meals, and having local players involved and safe practices to make it a reality is what we're going for right now. And there are other parts of this bill that are fantastic and more complicated, but you know, the delivery part we're pretty satisfied with, and we think that we can work with.
Matt, interestingly, I just looking down at my notes here, I just realized one of the issues of harm reduction that I came across on a blog was the idea this may be an opportunity to get rid of the singles, the classic, you know, things that are driving law enforcement, neighborhood associations, everyone completely crazy. I don't want to name any, convenience store names. We all saw that dust up 2 years ago with the mayor's office and the idea of selling, folks who might be watching this who don't know, basically you can buy single, nips, as they used to call them years ago, go into a convenience store, buy a soft drink, open the nip in the parking lot, dump it in the soft drink, get behind the wheel. No one's none the wiser that you're drinking alcohol. And this has got to stop. I mean, it's just, there's no other way to say it. It's got to stop. Do you agree with that this might be an opportunity to deal with the small single alcohol thing?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a huge revenue driver for some of these convenience stores with liquor licenses. And it's very dangerous. I mean, you just walk out with a paper bag and start slamming them back and behind the wheel of your car, and nobody would really know until you have some kind of incident. The delivery option of this bill is something that once bars are included, we'll be able to work with. It provides an opportunity for somebody who is trained in what to look for while they're serving. So that right there itself lends itself to harm reduction. Otherwise, I have to reiterate this point, this legislation as written with the licensing scheme that it has will end up killing your local bars and nightclubs. It'll devalue the liquor licenses that are either being leased or that are owned by these establishments so much that they'll never be able to recover, and they'll never be able to reopen again. So we have to see some major changes on the licensing side of this legislation before we fully support it.
Go ahead and expand. We didn't talk too much about that because that's a lot of the business side of this as opposed to the consumer side. But if we started talking about the price of liquor licenses as they stand now, but I sort of threw out there casually the idea of the $3,000 license.
Yeah.
Go ahead and expand on that if you would. I realized I was aiming to wrap up there, but I don't want to leave that out.
Sure.
How that works, who qualifies, how one gets it, how often one needs to reissue. How does that whole $3,000 license thing work?
So these are what are called interlocal dispenser licenses or on-premise licenses. First, I want to dispel one rumor or falsehood, and that's that brokers and other license owners are making millions of dollars from leasing these licenses. And that's simply not true.
Right.
So we've actually got 407 current total interlocal dispenser licenses in New Mexico. 73 of those licenses are leased. Of those 73 leased licenses, 27 are bars and 8 are hotels, which bars and hotels are not helped by this current legislation. That leaves 38 that are leased by locally owned restaurants. So that's kind of the breakdown of where we currently sit. 334 of those 407 are actually owned. So there's not a lot of leasing going on. There's not a lot of quote unquote millionaires being created by the leasing. All of that being said, the way the bill has the new licenses set out, they would basically be an interlocal dispenser license that a restaurant could get to serve beer, wine, and liquor at this point, which would basically be the same thing that a bar can currently do, but we don't have the opportunity to do the delivery under this bill at this point. So that those two things combined would severely end up harming the industry. That license, as laid out in the legislation, is I think about $3,000, would need to be renewed every year. And just like all of the other licenses, the licenses that our bar and nightclub owners have now, I think the fee is roughly $1,300 per license per year, with each license, plus whatever the cost is to either lease the license from a broker or to purchase the full license, which in some cases can be anywhere from $300,000 on up to I think the highest I've heard is like $700,000, somewhere around there. So that's kind of how that scheme works. We definitely need some major adjustments behind licensing.
Under the new scheme, how does one move around licenses? The old way, rural versus urban, you could, dependent on population. There was just like this kind of weird formula. How is that going to be impacted with this bill?
That's a good question, and
We're still to be
I'm not quite
determined,
sure how
as
to
they
answer it. So,
So I mean, I think that I agree with Matt that the bars specifically are kind of squeezed and not addressed in this bill in a way. I think that, you know, a bar is going to probably have to go with a restaurant and find a, you know, whether somebody on premise is going to operate food for the location to then take advantage of that $3,000 license that is going to potentially free up, like the ability to have that at a local community level. There's the potential to have, I think, 10 bars replace one. And so there's definitely going to be more competition in these markets. And there is the risk that if somebody wants to go it as a pure bar or nightclub without food, that they're going to have these big mega licenses, right? You know, but by having in some of these small communities the opportunity to now do two things. First of all, the people that were running with a full bar license that might have lost their package rights are in this bill. There's a right to buy that back. Right. So by buying that back, that will now create basically a new package license, which are the more valuable licenses in general. And that license could stay in the community or be portable to a bigger market, Las Cruces, Albuquerque, Santa Fe, wherever, that has a need for a package thing. And so that could be a Walmart or a big box store that can afford those prices and so on. So it's the bar that is sort of squeezed in the middle, the purest bar that doesn't have food at all, even if it's just a tamale warmer and nachos, right? You know, just to keep people there. And that's sort of that line that needs to be addressed here to say, could somebody now qualify for that cheaper, more affordable license and free up this license that would then be something they could sell, maybe not for everything that they were able to sell for a few if they shut down their bar before, but they're getting a little bit on both sides of it. It's not a perfect mix, and everybody's going to have to look at how they, whether they own, whether they lease, whether, you know, how they want to operate their model and so on. But it's going to create a little, I would say, for lack of a better term, liquidity in the market, right? With the ability to move them, to regain your package, so those will migrate to packaged stuff, and then the restaurants and bars will be able to expand and not require a bar license anymore, or like a dispenser license.
Gotcha. Hey, Matt, interesting. I've also seen on a couple of the blogs as well the idea of this. You mentioned earlier the mitigation of the license holders as it stands now. Say someone paid 300 grand for their license 10 years ago. It's now worth $3,001 if this thing passes. But the idea that, you know, one could get into business, you know, you get a group of people together, get some partners. You know, this opportunity is a very interesting thing when it drives human behavior. And, you know, when you think about alcohol and how important it is, you know, honestly, to our state, we like it. You know, we're just looking for a way to do it that doesn't harm people or harm ourselves. You know, honestly, if we became the 37th state, I could see this thing really taking off. I'm really kind of amazed by it. But, you know, I'm getting away from my own point here. The idea of how to mitigate the damage for the current license holders, I've seen the idea of potentially taxing things to then be able to roll some of that money back to those owners, potentially, if I have that right. Is there something cooking along those lines? Am I grokking that correctly?
yeah, there's a couple of schemes that people are talking about. One is just straight cash payments,
Yeah.
flowing from the state to whoever to purchase these licenses back.
Is that viable? I gotta interrupt you.
That one's probably not viable because of the anti-donation clause. There's another scheme that's been put forward by some other owners, where, say, maybe you have like a $300,000 license, you then can sell off what maybe over 3 years what would be deemed individual licenses underneath that $300,000 license. So whether they sell them for $3,000 or $10,000 or whatever, the state would say, okay, you have this license. Here's how many other licenses can be created and what you're able to sell, which we definitely would be in support of, because then that allows the owners to be able to recoup a lot of their funding that they've put into it. And you know, we've heard some other schemes too, but that one seems to the owners to be the most palatable at this point, and something that we would definitely support, barring other cash payments and that kind of stuff.
Sure. I mean, it's got to be dealt with. I mean,
It has to be.
This is going nowhere unless this gets dealt with. Honestly,
Yeah.
you know, the current licensees, you know, they're not going to be happy, but just
Right.
something that's reasonably palatable,
Yeah.
that they can, you know, get a sense of getting their money back or some kind of value. I love the use of the word liquidity, you know, by Justin a second ago. You know, if these guys, you know, George Gundry, who was quoted in the Journal. I've interviewed George, you know, about the situations for COVID. He holds 3 licenses, and I can totally see where this man is coming from.
Yeah.
Suddenly you look
Yeah.
up one day and you're like, wait a minute, I didn't ask for this.
Yeah.
I've been working really hard to get these 3, you know, licenses.
Yeah.
The George Gundrys of the world, they must be satisfied. There's just no way around this. So this bill's going nowhere.
Well, legally too, you have to satisfy the fact that that these liquor licenses in New Mexico are now technically property.
Yes.
You can't just set up a new licensing scheme that takes the property away from the owner. That owner has to be duly and rightfully and justifiably compensated for that taking.
And if it adds up to millions, Justin, again, this tax scheme I read, you could make that up, you know, in a number of years, perhaps, if there has to be a scheme like that over some time. There might be a negotiating point there.
There's definitely, I think I've heard close to $1 billion, but if you string it out over 10 to 15 years, I think you might be able to get it. The concept of multiplying and dividing licenses, that came out of a task force that was back in 2015, I think, the Liquor Control Task Force. And it never came to fruition in a bill, but it was one of these concepts to basically take licenses and say, you know, you get to triple your licenses. So it's sort of, it might make more competition on the actual bar to bar level, right? You know, there will be 3 times as many restaurants and bars with licenses.
Right.
But that's you know, if these licenses are what are restricting economic development and a vibrant economy here, then we need to do that to get that moving. And that might be the most equitable way to allow for equity owners of licenses to see something out of that. But it may create the same problem 10 years from now when somebody got their license and they're like, now what? So it's there should be probably both sides of the thing. Here's $1 billion to finance this over 10 years, and we're going to triple the licenses, and it's going to be this unwinding mechanism to bring us to a new paradigm that allows for the corner bar that is only 2,000 square feet, right? Or maybe only 1,000 square feet, and only, you know, a supermarket that is only 5,000 square feet. So you start to have neighborhood grocery stores that don't need a $1 million license, but you say, well, I want to get a 6-pack on my corner. But that license is too expensive for a small grocery store where we like the old bodega, right? You know, but this is New Mexico, and the $1 million licenses all end up at what we consider convenience stores, which end up being gas stations, right?
Yep.
And so.
Yeah, we got to break it. We got to break it. If anything happens during this process, we must break this logjam of where the licenses cost, the cost of them, the Liquor Control Act. Everything just needs a tweak. It's been 40 years, for gosh sake. I appreciate what you guys tried to do 6 years ago and last year, certainly. But it's all a process, isn't it? It really is a process. It's a political process. It's a cultural process. You can't just jam something down someone's throat and expect it to be accepted. But I'm really excited about this one. So I want to thank again Justin Green, the Restaurant Marketing and Delivery Association. He's a board member, but he's also in Santa Fe and a business owner of delivering alcohol. He's actually, his expertise is on the ground. It's not just policy. So Justin, I appreciate your being with us. And of course, Matt Kennicott from the Bar, Nightclub, and Entertainment Venue Association, recently formed to represent those folks in this process. Matt, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Folks, tonight, 7 o'clock, Channel 5.1, got a great group. We've got some former lawmakers. We're going to break down the state of the address by Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham, which lasted a grand total of 26 minutes. I think a new record for shortness. It was amazing. That's what the lack of pomp and circumstance does. But that's at 7 o'clock on Channel 5.1, and I want to encourage to see you there. But thanks, fellas, for your time today. It's been a great conversation. This is a very interesting situation to watch. It has a lot of grassroots sort of interest, if I can put it that way, when I talk to people. This is like a real life bill that people can really feel in their gut. You know what I mean? It's a very interesting
Mhm.
thing that way, as opposed to some piece of legislation that nobody understands. So.
Yeah.
So as this thing moves along, I'd like to put an offer out there as well. If you'd like to talk about this again in another Facebook Live format for either of you guys or more, I'm going to try to get the representative and all the representatives who are for this as it moves along. So it's an open invite. We can keep talking about that because, again, this is an education process.
Yeah.
Justin, you've got to educate people about your business endlessly. I can imagine. It's like a nonstop thing, and same for you, Matt, as well, for where your folks are coming from. So
Absolutely.
I want to put that out there. All right, guys, thank you. Enjoy your Friday, the rest of your Friday. Enjoy your weekend. And
Thanks,
folks,
Gene. Appreciate it.
see you
Gene,
next week.
thank you very much.
Looking forward to
Thanks.
chatting again.
Absolutely. We're going to do this. This is a
All
good
righty.
one. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
You got it.